Remember that what we worry about is what we're meditating on, because worry is meditation in the negative space. And so the more we focus on what we're going to lose, the more we actually create a reality that brings that into fruition. So in order for us to move past this idea that everything that comes into our lives is somehow going to be taken from us, we have to change the story. Hi friends, welcome back to Call Cut with Angelique. We're going to head right into the next section of the fear series, which is the fear of loss. There are many things that we are afraid of in this world, and we are justified for it. Last time we spoke one-on-one, we talked about the fear of success, which is a real fear. Today, we're going to go into the fear of loss, which is another real fear, and I'm going to show you how to call cut on that tired old narrative and step into the life you were born to live. But before we do that, we have to get down to why we have the fear of loss. Where does it come from? How do we even know we have it? And how does it get in the way of bringing in the most spectacular version of our lives that we want to live? Let's get down to it. If you've been living on planet Earth, you have dealt with loss. I truly believe there is no human walking around that hasn't had to deal with loss on some level or another. Yes, there are those who have had to deal with it in more significant ways. However, pain is subjective, and each person is going to feel it to whatever degree they're going to feel it. And just because we have a different level of pain doesn't minimize someone else's suffering. Again, that's a way that we all come back in unity, knowing that we have all dealt with the pain of loss at some point. And this should be a unifying compassion point. The fear of loss comes from having had loss early on in your life, or maybe carrying over a script from another life. If we go back to childhood, it can be from many things: divorce, moving around, early loss of a parent or a sibling, having to see death at an age where you really can't comprehend it, financial loss, watching your parents go through financial loss, that's another big one. All of these things contribute to whatever narrative you're going to tell yourself about the nature of life and loss. So in my personal experience, I had the divorce of my parents. That was a loss of a parent. I also had the loss of my stepsister to a drunk driver. That was the loss of a sibling. I had a loss of a lot of relatives because my mother was the baby of 7 and everyone was older than she was. So my grandfather died when I was 5. I barely knew him. And on and on and on it goes. But the idea is we start to pattern for this fear of loss. And as a result, a couple of different things happen. Either one, we hold on tighter because we don't want the things that we love in life to leave. Or 2, we may push things out of our lives because we don't want to feel the pain of losing them. Now, there's a lot of other examples in between, but those are the main 2. We either hang on too tight or we push people away. And neither one is really a healthy expression because we're often doing it unconsciously. We're just running these scripts and we don't even know why we're doing it. I had a friend that used to say, I always come from the place of fuck you before you fuck me. And I thought, isn't that interesting? So he would screw someone over or hurt somebody or dismiss them or abandon them before that person had a chance to do it to him. And one day I said to him, but how do you know that somebody's going to screw you over? How do you know that somebody's going to hurt you? How do you know that they're going to take advantage of you? And he said, well, that's just been the pattern of my life. And he fancied himself somebody who really understood pattern recognition. To which I challenged and said, is it pattern recognition, or are you creating the pattern through a story that you've been telling yourself for years, which is then now created a belief that is now creating your reality, because that belief has now become a habit, and the habit is now creating everything you see around you and every person that you interact with. And he got really quiet and he's like, I don't know. All I know is it's kept me safe. We are all looking for safety in the world because there is a lot of fear and there's a lot of stuff that we don't necessarily feel safe with. And that's okay. It's okay to feel like you're unsafe. It's okay to feel at times like you're not sure and you have to be overprotective. There's nothing wrong with being overprotective of the vessel. But when that overprotective nature steps in and actually gets in the way of you aligning with your highest and best self, now you're doing yourself a huge disservice. Now you've moved into the land of self-betrayal. And that really isn't where you want to be, because you won't be able to bring into existence all the things you want. You can't get the relationship you want, the job you want. You can't bring the creation to fruition. You just don't. You'll stop yourself at every turn. You'll get involved in dynamics that are not really healthy for you because you're playing out this story of fear of loss. Okay, I'm going to get into this beautiful relationship. I have this wonderful person, but I'm going to cling on to them to dear life. And maybe that person expresses to you that they don't really like that kind of cling on personality, but you can't help it because you're terrified that that person's going to cheat on you or they're going to find somebody better than you, and on and on and on it goes. And then that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Remember that what we worry about is what we're meditating on, because worry is meditation in the negative space. And so the more we focus on what we're going to lose, the more we actually create a reality that brings that into fruition. So in order for us to move past this idea that everything that comes into our lives is somehow going to be taken from us, we have to change the story. And changing the story can be difficult. And I've said this in the podcast many, many times. There is no 1, 2, 3, click your fingers and it all magically disappears. There's a lot of work that has to be done, shadow work, and it is work. That's why they call it shadow work. It doesn't mean that it's going to take years. It doesn't have to take years. It can take weeks. It can take months, but it is going to take dedication and devotion to really wanting to heal, to change those storylines. So every time it comes up, you're catching it. You meet somebody and you say, oh yeah, this friendship's probably going to end. That you got to call cut. Well, why? Where is the evidence that this friendship is going to end? You just met this person. Why do you think it's going to end? You haven't even gotten past go. You just stepped into the arena, but already your mindset is trying to take you down a path that is not necessarily the path. It's really difficult when we have to look at ourselves from this angle, because we will notice that we do this a lot. Oh, you know what? I'm not going to bother. I'm going to get that job. And you know what? I'm probably going to lose that job anyway. Well, why are you going to lose that job? You just applied for it. Now you're already talking yourself out of it, right? There's a lot that happens when, we don't really know if something's going to leave us. We can't control it. And human beings like to be in control because we feel so out of control with so many things in our lives. We feel that so many things happen to us without our consent. And so we think that, hey, if I can, hang on really, really tight, or if I can push somebody away, then I am in control. But that's the illusion. You don't have control. As a matter of fact, you're spiraling out of control and you can't find your way back to solid ground. You're trying to control something that you really can't control. Now, in the strange paradoxical way that nature seems to express itself, there is always some sort of polarity at play, right? And when we break that down, and we really break that down, nothing is created outside of us. It's all created inside of us. This even goes down to global consciousness. One of the things that when you're looking around in the world and you're looking at the way things are playing out, it's always a hijacking of our consciousness, because in order for reality to change on a global scale, all of us need to be believing the same thing. So I'm going to give you an example. If we all believe that World War III is coming, and we all believe this with all our hearts, World War III will manifest. Because all of that consciousness is being poured into the same vision of reality, and then reality will reconstruct around it. If we all believe we're going to lose something, then we will, because we will construct reality around our thoughts and our beliefs. Now, conversely, the opposite is true. If we believe with all our hearts that everything is always working out in our favor, that all the universe conspires to give us exactly what we need, we are always protected, we are deeply loved, and we are always in a place where we can rise above, we can get to the next level where exactly what we need will be given to us, even if some things have to fall away. Well, that's a completely different mindset. That elevates us to a different frequency. And when you are able to give everything up, the universe is able to refill your container with everything that is now in alignment with this new best life that you're trying to get in sync with. And we don't always realize that. We also don't always realize that the losses that we face are something that we need to face. And as much as it's painful, it is putting us on a path for our highest evolution. Now, that's not always a great thing to hear. You have to lose something in order to gain something. But loss and gain are two sides of the same coin, as everything else is on the polarity spectrum, darkness and light. And so when you understand that you can't have one without the other. They need each other, they feed off of each other, and they work off of each other. In the most simplest terms, if you go to a store, you pay money to buy a product. The store loses the product but gains the money. You gain the product but lose the money. It's loss and gain. And this plays out all the time. And if you really break it down in everything, even in a relationship, when you get engaged, you lose your freedom of being single because now you're engaged. And the same for your partner. When you get married, that takes one more step forward. But now you've gained a life partner. Now you've gained your partner in crime. You've got your lover. You have the person that you're going to go do life with. So, okay, you have to lose the single life and the ability to run around, doing whatever you want with whoever you want, to being more monogamous and to doing things with the same person. But you've traded one for the other, a loss and a gain. And on it goes. You want a better job, you may have to let go of the job that's been giving you security for the last 10 years. And so loss, therefore, when we look at it from a very, very high level, is not really designed to trap us. It's designed to free us. It's designed to fill up our containers with whatever it is we need in the moment. And as soon as our container is full and now we have evolved and we have to do something different, we lose. So we get rid of it. We move into the next stage of evolution. I have gone through tremendous loss in my life, up and down and up and down. And I'm in a gain stage of my life right now. And I can tell you that I appreciate this gain stage more than I have ever appreciated gain stages in my life. This one here in my mid-40s is the most spectacular one. And it's because the loss was so incredibly spectacular. And when I say spectacular, I don't mean that in a overt sort of way. I mean that as crushing in many ways and crushing on all different levels. I got hit on every single sector. There was no part of my life that wasn't being affected, with the exception, thank God, of my family. I have a fabulous husband and a son that I love absolutely with all my heart. And that was solid. Everything else in my life was just absolute chaos. Up, down, left, right, up, down, left, right for a good decade. And I thought to myself, there's got to be an end to this at some point. And I realized that my fear of loss was what was keeping me in that roller coaster. It was keeping me stuck in this idea that anything good that came my way was going to be taken away from me. Any job that I would get would be taken away from me, would go to somebody else. Any friend that I had would betray me. That actually happened dozens of times. Partially, I was attracting people who would fulfill that prophecy. I was attracting jobs that would fulfill that prophecy. So interestingly enough, when I started to do this call cut work and I started a call cut on my own storylines, I noticed that everything started changing. Things started shifting around me, and suddenly I was no longer in this place of loss, but gain. And then the minute you get into the flow of gain, you start to see things very differently. And now your mind starts to say, wait a minute, I have this, I'm keeping this. This is incredible. How I actually overcame this one is pretty interesting. When I got this job, I had gotten this consulting job, and I actually like being a consultant. I like being a consultant in projects. I feel like that's a great place for me to be. I can really use my expertise to help be of service. I was grateful for this job because I felt like this is bringing some stability. While these other projects are kicking off, this is bringing me some peace and respite after having years of a roller coaster. And relatively quickly, it was started crashing down. I think I was there for about 3 months when all of a sudden it seemed like this company was going to go belly up due to things that were happening in the economy and in the world. And I thought, oh my God, yes, of course, I'm not deserving. It's my loss. I'm going to have another loss. And something right in that moment was like, no, No, you're not losing this. When I tell you guys that every single day was chaotic, okay, it's going to be over in March. Okay, now we're kicking it back to June. Okay, it's going to be over in September. You're going to go to September and then it's going to be over. I mean, it was months of this. But I held my ground and I kept saying, nope, I trust the divine that everything is going to work out in my favor. The fear of loss is gone. I am not fearing losing this. I am in a gain cycle. I am going to align my story with gain, and I refuse to step back into this old story. And I stuck with it. And every time I said it with conviction, I was hit again with, oh yeah, you're going to lose your job. Oh yeah, this isn't going to happen. Oh yeah, this job's going to go away. I was having a really hard time with it for a while, and I was getting kind of down in the doldrums. Other things were happening, but this was something that brought stability and peace of mind to me, and which I hadn't had in a long time. And I really appreciated that. And finally, I said, well, the only thing I could do is surrender. And I refused to surrender to the storyline of loss. So I'm going to surrender to the storyline of gain. And I am going to surrender to the idea that all of the universe is conspiring in my favor. And it did. And to this day, I still have this consulting job. How it worked out, I will never know. The universe did that. I did not do that. But what I did do was I did my part, and my part was changing my mindset. It was calling cut on that old narrative and saying, no, this narrative is not going to determine what my life is going to be. I am going to be a powerful co-creator. Yes, there are things I cannot control, but I have to stand fully in my light. I have to stand fully in my power, and I cannot let this go. And I also have to trust that if I have to let this go, something else is going to come up under it. And I stayed in that space of conviction. Every single time I got hit with that fear of loss, I hit it back. Nope. I called cut. I reframed and I realigned. Called cut, reframed, and I realigned. Remember that the universe is going to give you tests, right? It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be, okay, I call cut and now everything works in my favor. No. We have to change the belief. But the minute you start to use the call cut method over and over again and you get into that flow, you're going to notice that things are happening faster for you. You are getting more aligned quicker because your brain has now been trained to look for the good. It's looking for the opportunity. It's looking for the way out of fear. It's looking for the way into the light. We are taught to look for the fear. We are taught to stay in the dark. We are taught to put our heads under the blankets and run away from the monsters instead of pulling the blanket off, looking at the monster and being like, you're kind of ugly and I'm not really scared of you. Maybe we could be friends. Suddenly the dark's not scary anymore. Suddenly the unknown is not unknown. It's known because we've chosen to make a story around it. The monster in the closet is no longer a monster. It's my friend. This is the power of thought. This is the power of story. This is the power of changing your mind and saying, I am no longer going to be a victim of a narrative that I did not create, but I have been participating in. I'm going to call cut, reframe, and realign with the story I was meant to live. Remember, friends, we have all dealt with loss. Fear of loss is a real thing. It is something that affects so many of us. It is something that we often don't realize that we're doing, but as soon as we realize that little voice in our head is telling us a story that is not true, we can call cut, flip the script, and tell a new and powerful story. One that will take us to our highest and best self and take us out of the fear of loss and put us in the joy of gain. Thank you so much for joining me on Call Cut with Angelique. New episodes drop every Friday. If you like this content, please subscribe, like, share with your friends. And remember, folks, no matter what life gives you, you must always keep shining.